Immediately thank my panel session for participating. This has been a really fun experience so far, and I'm sure that our visitors today are going to enjoy everything that we have to share. So just a little bit about me. As Sandy mentioned, I'm co-founder and creative director of Clockwork Design Group. And for over 25 years, Clockwork has worked with AEC and other professional service firms to create modern websites and memorable brands on time and on budget. So I'm going to let each of my panelists introduce themselves. And when you do so, if you guys could also just mention when you have launched your most recent website or when you created that and how long it was before the interim between the prior website and the one today. So I'll start with Sean. If you could give us a quick intro, Sean. Thank you.
Good morning. As mentioned previously, I'm a project architect for LPR Architects. I'm also part of the marketing team. We actually underwent a full collateral and website redesign in collaboration with a full rebranding in 2018. It was a 12-month process. We launched in the beginning of 2019, and our previous website update was in 2010.
Great. Cassandra, how about you? You have to unmute, sweet. There you go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassandra Thompson. I'm the creative leader at Environmental Partners. We also go by EP. As creative leader, I focus on branding, marketing, communications. Our new website update was done in tandem of a complete rebrand overhaul. Our prior website had not been updated in about 7 years, so it was quite a long time coming.
Excellent, thank you. And Amanda, how about you?
Sure, I'm Amanda Alcamo. I'm the digital marketing manager at Ascentech. We're the acoustical, audiovisual, IT security, noise and vibration consultant group based out of Cambridge. We are currently going through the website rebrand, so you won't see a new site quite yet. We started that in Q3 of 2020, and it was about 5-6 years since the first rebrand.
Excellent. So I'm going to dive in, but before I do so, I just want to let everybody know what we're doing today. So we have an interesting panel session where we're going to begin with some rapid fire questions with some true, false, and multiple choice questions. And we're going to progress through questions that get a little bit lengthier as we go. So round one, here we go, guys. Get yourselves ready. If you want to make sure you're unmuted, we're going to jump from one set panelists to the next. And we have about 8 true false questions to begin. So Sean, I'm going to start with you. True or false, an RFP was used for your website project?
True.
Okay. How about you, Cassandra?
False.
False. How about you, Amanda?
True.
Okay. True or false, Sean, a budget was included in your website RFP?
False.
Cassandra?
False.
Amanda?
False.
Question 3. Sean, you sent the RFP to more than 5 website agencies?
5 exactly.
Cassandra?
False.
Amanda? True. True.
Question 4. It's crucial to like the person or agency you hire for a website project. Sean?
True.
Cassandra?
True.
Amanda?
Very true.
Okay. Question 5. Knowledge of the AEC industry is critical for a website agency. Sean?
True.
Cassandra?
In general, true.
Amanda?
True.
Okay. 6, it's not important to have employee bios on the website. Sean?
False.
Cassandra?
False.
Amanda?
False.
Okay. Employee bios should not mention hobbies or interests because that could be kind of scary. Sean? Cassandra?
Brand specific, but false.
Amanda?
False.
Okay. And our last true false. Doing competitor and or client research is not a crucial part of the website process. Sean.
False.
Cassandra.
False.
Amanda.
False.
Great. So we're all pretty much in agreement on most of these. All right, moving on to our rapid fire multiple choice questions. So Sean, on your perfect day, if you had to choose, which of the following would you prefer to do? A, review a 100-page RFP. B, write a proposal that you got yesterday and is due tomorrow. C, walk 10 miles in the rain uphill. Or D, go through the website redesign process again.
I do live in Worcester, so hills aren't bad, but go through the web design process again.
Cassandra.
Definitely D, go through the process again.
Amanda, you're in the middle of it.
Go through the process again.
It's a tough one. All right. The decision makers on the website project included the following. Just name which apply to you. Management, clients, marketing staff, content creators, a committee, or other. Sean.
Management, marketing staff, and content creators.
Cassandra.
So for us, it was management, clients, marketing staff, content creators, and a committee.
All of the above, great.
Yeah.
And Amanda.
Ours is management, marketing, committee of sorts as well.
Okay, good. All righty. According to you, you believe the most important factor or factors in developing a good website are A, visual images, B, written content, C, good branding, D, all of the above, or a combination of them. So Sean, what do you think?
D, all the above.
Cassandra?
So I think written content is important, but I feel strongly that visual images and good branding are the most important.
Okay. Amanda?
All of the above.
All of the above. Great. So the most critical phase of a website design and development project that deserves or requires the most time and attention is the RFP bidding and budgetary process, the general research or branding phase, the site mapping phase, the writing phase, the content development that is, the design phase, or the beta testing and post-launch phase. Thoughts on that, Sean?
For us, it was the design phase, since we already kind of had a good sense of how we wanted the structure to be.
Okay. Cassandra?
For us, it was also the design phase.
Okay. Amanda?
We're currently in the middle, so I can't really speak to the end, but definitely the design phase. But I also would strongly recommend the RFP, giving that a lot of time as well.
Excellent. Okay. So when you were picking out an agency to work with, rank the most important factors. A, reputation and references. B, portfolio of work. C, the cost price. D, industry knowledge. Or C, the interview impressions. Sean?
For us, it was interview impressions, followed by portfolio work, then reputation and references, industry knowledge, and then lastly, cost.
Okay. Cassandra, thoughts on that?
For us, it was the exact same.
Okay. Amanda?
Ours was definitely the portfolio of their work, then which led to the interview impressions, then the cost price, industry knowledge, and then reputation references.
Excellent, thank you. And our last rapid fire question, for the employee bios on your website, who did you include? A, just executives. B, senior level designers or engineers. C, all or most client-facing team members, or other. Sean?
We did all our employees.
Everyone. Cassandra?
Yeah, we have all of our permanent employees.
Okay. And Amanda, your plans?
We will have all of the employees on. Excellent.
Great. So now we're on to round 2. And these are going to be short one-sentence answers. If you guys can keep it quick, that would be great, because we have a lot of questions in this phase. So Sean, I'm going to start with you. What is the single best piece of advice that you would offer about the website RFP process. So just that RFP stage.
For us, it'd be having leadership involved from the beginning so everyone's clear on preferences, priorities, and most importantly, cost.
Excellent. Cassandra, thoughts on that?
So we actually did not go through an RFP process, but I would recommend very much that you focus on people having good connections in that interview process.
Great. And Amanda?
Solidify your wants and needs from the very beginning.
Excellent. All righty. One sentence. What is the single biggest thing most often missing from a website RFP, or something that perhaps you would have liked to have put in that you forgot to put in? Sean?
Budget and structured cost proposal.
Okay. Cassandra?
Cost.
Yeah. Amanda?
Budget.
Yeah. And we always recommend to people, don't leave it out. There's the temptation to leave it out, but it does not really help you in the long run. All righty. One sentence answer. Sean, who are the people who had input into your RFP and agency selection process? You don't have to give names, just general titles of the decision makers.
Being a smaller firm, our marketing committee was involved, business development, and the president of our company.
Great. Cassandra?
Yeah, so we are also a small firm. So our director of marketing and our CEO.
And Amanda?
Our marketing group and the management of our company were involved.
Great. Okay, Sean, what is your single best piece of advice on developing a timeline, staying on schedule, and general website project management?
For us, definitely having a single point of contact outwardly with a design agency is critical. And then having a team that supports them so that you can divvy up the workload to kind of really hit that is really what was the key to success for us.
Great. Cassandra?
Yeah, so I think getting organized, staying organized, and keeping organized is the best thing that you could do to handle all of that.
Great. And Amanda?
I think you need to know that it's going to take much longer than you think it is going to, and to gather everybody's comments after every single meeting is going to take much longer than you think it's going to. So just know that ahead of time.
Great. And I think I skipped one, so I'm going back. What is your single best piece of advice about the website budgetary and cost control process? Sean?
For us, we did a fair amount of market research before we brought anyone in to get a head start on kind of preferences, likes, dislikes, looking at competitors, saw who they worked with. So that was what really kind of helped us.
Great. And Cassandra?
So I'll go back to recommending focus on organization, but also knowing what you are hoping for the outcome to be from the beginning.
Amanda?
I would agree with both Sean and Cassandra, and I would also just go back to my point of solidifying your wants and needs at the beginning will really keep you on track for the entire project.
Great. So here's a tricky question, but one that I'm hoping you have some insight on. So in general, during the website process overall, what percentage of your time was spent working on that project versus other responsibilities that you normally have? Sean?
So for me, as mentioned, I'm a project architect, so it was very little for me in my dedicated time, but for our dedicated marketing staff, which was 2 people, it was a majority of their time during that 1-year process.
Yeah. Cassandra?
Yeah, so for me in my role, during that time, I really focused almost exclusively on website and our rebrand simultaneously. So on average, I would estimate about 70% of my time was focused on that.
Great, great. Amanda, I know you're in the throes of it now, so.
Yeah, definitely in the throes of it. I email along with Clockwork, which is always fun. But I would say, yeah, a majority, over 50% of my time.
Okay, great. So summarize how you decided which services you featured on your site and which ones you did not?
So for us, being a smaller firm and with a strong regional focus, the things that we really wanted to focus on was how committed we are to our community and how our personnel and employees really dovetail directly into that in our core values.
Great. Cassandra?
So this was a big one for us and one that took a surprising amount of time. It was kind of an unexpected time amount. So we looked at everything all the services we provided, and ultimately came up with a list that we felt was accurate and comprehensive to all of our current, future, and past work.
Excellent. Amanda?
We are going to have all of our services on the new site.
Excellent. And I threw you a curveball because I swapped order here. So now I want to talk about your projects, because deciding which projects to include can be a really intense process. Sean, how did you determine which projects to feature on the site and which ones to let fall by the wayside?
Yeah, so as mentioned, we redid our website in 2010. We dropped a lot then. Being a 50-year-old firm, we had a lot of legacy projects that we ultimately ended up deciding to drop due to poor kind of visual support. And we rolled those over to a history page. So really it was photography that drove the bus for us on that, on which ones we could really support strongly in that sense. And don't be afraid, you can always add them later if you can get better photography then.
Excellent. Cassandra, how about you?
So for us, it was actually 3 parts. So we focused on imagery, so that graphic information, storytelling, but then also identified which projects we knew we currently or in the future would want to continue to push during our RFP process when we're responding.
Great. Amanda?
We're not up to this part yet. I'm anticipating a challenge because a lot of people feel very passionate about their projects that are on the site. But I am thinking that what we're going to do is, again, kind of what Cassandra was saying, is what projects we want to work on in the future, what we're really going after, and really highlight those.
Excellent. I know it's a tough part of the process. What would you say would be your single best piece of advice on how to develop a sitemap that works well for website viewers and that makes your stakeholders happy as well? So that website site mapping process, and that does include project selection too. So, but think more top level when you answer this one, Sean.
For us, it was keep it simple. Really, what were the major buckets you want to put in anything? And anyone who's worked with Clockwork, you know, no dead ends. You don't want any dead ends. So,
Cassandra, how about you? Site mapping.
Yeah, so I would actually recommend finding websites that you like. They don't have to be specific to the industry, but just in general, focused on, you know, what is that experience as the user, and identify which ones speak to you.
Excellent. Amanda, thoughts on site mapping?
Sure. So I'm really passionate about usability and navigability, which Danielle can attest to. But our site map, we're trying to really focus on how we will be able to get people through the site in a way that is almost like we're recommending them, but that won't actually seem like that. So it's a really big part of our project, just because right now it's not really working that great.
Excellent. Thank you. Back to content, because content also is integral to site mapping and basically everything else on your website. So Sean, what was the single best piece of advice you can offer about how to develop good written content that fits with your website?
This is definitely one of the hardest tasks if you've never had content or never had a website or had projects that never had content created. It took up a majority of our time. Getting the photography and other things are much more simple. So really the best advice is be sure to give yourself enough time during that phase, or do it well ahead of the RFP process. Have your ducks in a row before you even go down that road with a designer.
I love hearing that. Cassandra.
Yeah, so at EP, we are primarily focused in engineering. So one of our biggest challenges is there's so much important and rich technical text as part of our project descriptions. So for us, I would recommend, and anybody in this situation, to really find that balance of providing the technical information, but really focusing on storytelling.
Great. And Amanda, thoughts on content?
I definitely agree with Cassandra on the finding the correct balance. I would also recommend getting your technical staff involved. If you've been on a Centec's website, you know we have a lot of content. We're constantly publishing blogs, and that is coming from our technical staff. So really getting them engaged in a way that makes them feel like they're being included works really great for the site. And also when you need them to help you with a project summary, you can kind of be like, you owe me one, because come on. So I definitely recommend getting them involved.
Excellent. Great. So here's a question that we get asked a lot early on in the process. People ask us, how are we going to get, buy-in when this whole thing is finished at the end? How do we prevent problems at the end of the process? So give us some thoughts about how you got buy-in to satisfy multiple stakeholders with the final website. Sean?
For us, it was really during the process, we made sure we had buy-in. We provided periodic updates to the entire office and made sure they were able to give us feedback before major moves were implemented.
Great. Cassandra?
Yeah, so I think that EP had a little bit of an easier time than many companies, because our website and our brand in general was so outdated that everybody was actually very much craving an update. But to ensure that everybody felt at the end that it was reflective of our company and our culture, we paid very close attention to making sure that we had moments where all of our team was involved. So whether it was meetings talking about what the goal was, or brown paper sessions asking about what brands they trust and why, and opening conversations and navigating how that connects to our future brand.
Amanda?
Recommend making sure management is part of the discussion always. I think that knowing you will maybe have headaches at the end of the process without them, I really recommend bringing them in early, and also letting your company know that you are going through a process. I mean, Centec has about 70 employees, so we can't have everyone in the meeting, but knowing you're there and knowing that if you have any questions, you can come talk to, your point person at your company and really just open that dialogue.
Great, great. And Sean, can you give us one best piece of advice about dealing with the general research phase of the website process? So that early on research.
Yeah. For us, we really tried to analyze why certain competitors' websites elicited a particular response. Oftentimes it was easy to just kind of dismiss a website, but we really forced ourselves to stop and ask, is this a detail? Is this a visceral reaction? Like what is it that's causing us to have this feeling on this website? And when we started to take that, guys, it really gave us a strong sense of which way we wanted to go with our website.
Great. Cassandra?
Yeah, so I'd recommend spending significant time researching your direct competitors, your peripheral competitors, as I refer to them, also industry leaders, but to not be afraid to also really dive into outside of those groups as well. So pull from everywhere and ask questions along the way.
Great. Amanda?
Totally agree with Sean and Cassandra again. And I also recommend looking at your potential, clients. You want to know what their sites look like. You want to know how they're presenting themselves, and show in a similar way that you're at that level, you're at that top tier.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask one more rapid fire question here, and then we're going to move on. But I'd love to know just one or two compliments that you have received about your website since you've redone it. Sean, anything come to mind?
So people really have enjoyed our team pages and our history page. We really elevated our people and our community commitment in our rebranding and website redesign. And clients responded to it. So it's been well received.
Great. Cassandra.
Yeah, so after we launched our brand, one of our principals actually got an email from a client, a longtime client, and basically said that he was so excited that our website and our brand now reflects the quality that he has come to rely upon from EP. And that was enormous.
Wonderful. And Amanda, I know you haven't launched yet, so I'll let you take a pass on this one. Great. So we're going to move on to our round 3. These are questions that I'm going to ask each of you to answer with a few sentences. So Sean, in your words, please describe the biggest headache associated with the arduous task of website development and how you have learned to deal with it optimally.
Yeah, so kind of got into this early. It's really content creation. If there's anything that you're looking to add to your website that you didn't previously have, really start working on it before you bring a designer in, or give yourself a good gap in your schedule to get there. For us, we had 3 sections that we really hadn't had pulled together concisely prior to that. And we embarked on case stories, kind of storytelling and how we approach certain design services or building types or typologies, and then our history page, and then our core values. We always had them. We've always preached them. Same elevator talk, you get consistent verbiage from everybody in the firm on what it was, but we had never really put graphics together, concise language together in an outwardly facing way. And those 3 areas, the content creation was a pretty big hurdle to get over during the process.
Excellent. Cassandra, your thoughts on biggest headache?
Yeah, so our single biggest headache was also content creation and organization, but as it specifically relates to writing, we had so many voices and so many tones and so many varying degrees of technical information that we ended up actually creating a process where the marketing team actually goes through. We developed writing guidelines, and we actually then went through and updated all of our website project text to ensure that the tone was consistent, the voice was consistent, grammatically it was all consistent.
Excellent. Amanda, I know you're early on, but your biggest headache so far, maybe?
We have a large group of decision makers involved in the project, and gathering everyone's comments and suggestions in a timely manner is super challenging. So just set up expectations that it totally will take longer than you think it will, and that everybody will have a comment no matter how beautiful you think the new site is working on.
And thank you for all your hard work so far. You've been amazing at gathering feedback. So kudos to you on that one. So in a few sentences, describe one unexpected issue you dealt with in developing your current site, and briefly summarize how you resolved it. So Sean, I know something that came to mind. I'll see if it's what you have to say.
Yeah, so font. I never thought I'd spend so much time on font in my life. Not only because we were going through a rebrand and this was going to be the new font that we were going to go forward with for however many years, but the bigger thing was finding a font that actually can be supported in websites, open, free sourced fonts. And as you can see on my name, it's LPA pipe A. If you didn't know, that bar is called a pipe. And the position of the pipe varies dramatically through fonts. So that took a lot of time and a lot of review by us, and we finally landed on Gothic A1. You would have probably never thought it's called Gothic A1, but it is Gothic A1. It's like an Arial, which is kind of comical, but that was our problem.
Excellent. How about you, Cassandra? I know it wasn't font, but
it wasn't font. Nope, that was actually pretty easy for us. But the biggest unexpected challenge or hurdle or issue was actually in general us stepping away from the color green as it relates to everything, but specifically our logo. We had, prior to our rebrand and website launch, an emblem that was duotone of very data green and blue. And that was actually sort of what caused, I don't want to say an uproar, like there wasn't turmoil, but sort of like heads turning like, wait, what do you mean? Why would we do that? And to be honest, it was really an analysis that we had done. I put together a graphic visual analysis of colors from all of our competitors. So seeing how consistently those colors were represented and feeling like we really wanted to step away from the norm was sort of one big push. And then also when our stakeholders saw how beautiful the new logo and website could be, they were like sold.
Awesome. Amanda, did you have anything unexpected yet, or do you want to pass on this one?
Just one quick thing is actually in the RFP process, when we were actually in the interview stage, Clockwork was kind enough to tell us that we needed to be a bit more ADA compliant with our colors, and that some of our light colors on top of other light colors, weren't that great to read. So that wasn't even like Clockwork wasn't even hired, and they're already like giving us recommendations. So that was something.
Excellent. Yeah, ADA is a big issue now with websites, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. Sean, tell us how you handled the photo shoot process for your bio portraits.
So for us, it was pretty easy. Clockwork really kind of helped spearhead this. They coordinated not only providing us a list of photographers that we were able to review and pick out, but they also scheduled a makeup artist for the entire staff. So we had everyone come in for one day. We did a shoot, and there was a few straggles. We had to do a separate day, but the photographer was local, and we were able to coordinate that easy enough. And then as far as kind of bio information for each of our portfolios, we handled that internally through the use of a questionnaire. And for some people, an interview process was also needed to just pull a little bit more out of the quiet ones.
Excellent. Cassandra.
Yeah, so we actually did select our photographer through an RFP that we sent out to photographers that our team members knew in the area. And we ultimately found somebody that we felt captured the authenticity of our team members, but then also a balance of professionalism at the same time.
Wonderful. And Amanda, I think you're not reshooting, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, we're not reshooting. Ascentec has a large portfolio of portraits already. When someone new is hired, wait until a couple new people need to be shot, and then we'll do some reshoots for people who need theirs updated. Getting our consultants to agree for us to use the more updated one, because maybe it shows their real age, is a different story. So that's why sometimes they look a little bit younger in some things than others.
Oh, we hear you on that one. Great. So Sean, in a few sentences, tell us something important you've learned about efficiently gathering and organizing the images for your website.
Yeah, so for us, given how long we've been around, the interesting part is we had so many legacy projects that either we had renderings of or photos of, and having high-res scans or before those were lost, forever, was a big undertaking as part of it. Because the big transition from film to digital was huge, and protecting those files and managing those files in the end became something that we really had to overhaul and rework office-wide. And it was a great undertaking. It helped us get organized. Another thing I recommend doing before the RFP process, so before you get the designer on. But yeah, that was really the key to us, is making sure that we had strong visuals to support the projects we were looking to put on the website.
Great, great. Cassandra, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think most importantly is if you don't already have an asset management software in place, that there is just going to be most likely a lot of time spent getting that visual content organized and ready to go.
Yeah. Amanda, thoughts on organization?
We have a pretty robust folder structure already based on markets and project types. One thing I would suggest is right as the photos come in, change their names so that they're optimized for the web and ready to go immediately. It saves a lot of time later, and you just get into the habit, and it's like second nature.
Yeah. So naming your images by actual words that people will understand is so important. Good, very good point. About timeline, Sean, any best practices that you can offer about putting together a realistic website project timeline?
Hindsight's 2020. So for us, we did well on identifying our decision makers and point of contact ahead of time. We really kind of knew our time commitments ahead of time. We gave ourselves about a year, which was a healthy amount of time. Actually, it was 10 months. We ended up needing a year. And where we needed the year was the level of new material. I mean, needed that content creation. If you know there's a hole you need to fill in your outward facing website, really try to put in that work ahead of time, or just, really account for it in your schedule, and you can still get there.
Great. Cassandra.
Yeah, so my recommendation is twofold. First, acknowledge that this process takes time. When I first came on board, the number of people who were like, oh, we'll have a new website in 3 months, we'll have a rebrand in 3. And I was like, no, that's not how it works, right? So just acknowledge first that it takes a while. It can take up to 2 years and sometimes more if you're not ready or organized beforehand. For us, it took 18 months altogether. And I think the best recommendation I would have is, get buy-in, get voices integrated, but at the end of the day, have a core group of decision makers that can work together closely and consistently.
Great, great. Thoughts on that, Amanda?
I know I sound like a broken record, but really, it's going to take longer than you think it will. I'm just setting up those expectations are really important, not only for you, but also for the company as a whole to understand. If you're lucky enough to work with a designer like Clockwork and they have a schedule that they send out, keep on track of it. Don't be the reason things are holding up. Keep in contact always, and just, you just don't want to be the person that is holding up the entire process.
Great, great. So in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward to our round 4. I want to make sure we have enough time for questions at the end. So I'm going to ask you some questions and also screen share. I'm going to start with you, Amanda. I'd like you to talk about your current website and something that you actually really don't like about it, and was an impetus for change. So I'm going to start by showing your current site, and I hope everyone can see that now. Yeah, great. So Amanda, let's hear in your words something about, this is your healthcare section, and what it was that really was not working for you here.
I don't know where to look. I'm very overwhelmed on the site. There's this very big header at the top with this very small text, and I'm not really intrigued to learn more. It's not capturing my attention. There's also just these huge blocks of text you'll see as you go a little bit further down, which is kind of consistent with our overall site. No one's reading all of that text. I mean, people have such a small attention span now, and needing to break up that text is really important. I know if I'm not reading it, I don't know who else is. And I'm not tempted to click on those other things on the sides. It's not intriguing and keeping my interest. I'm also wondering, okay, this is a healthcare market. Where are the beautiful images of the healthcare projects you've worked on? Where are those really interesting projects? And the answer is they're on that sidebar. But again, I want to see those beautiful images. I want to see the projects we've worked on. I want to know your story. I want to know our story.
Right.
And then you can just kind of notice that the longer the list goes on the side, the bigger this white space gets. And then you just have dead space for a very long time. And then it's also it's not mobile friendly at all. If you were to go on our website and try and engage on a mobile device, it's not super friendly. I mean, you'll see an image for a couple of scrolls before you really get to some text, it's just not engaging with our users. And we really want people to engage with the site and learn something from it. And I think that's super important. And that was kind of a true impetus for change, was this lack of user friendliness, this lack of mobileness to the whole site. was one of our big things.
Excellent. So let's take a look at the new homepage design, which is not live yet. So we're getting a sneak peek here, and talk a little bit about what's working for you with this new design.
Yeah, sneak peek. So congratulations to all. I'm just immediately intrigued. I mean, these images are beautiful. We have all these images. We need to showcase them in some way. I love the interaction. You can see as you scroll through, as you see the sound waves are moving. I want to keep scrolling through. I want to know more. I want to scroll down to see more on the page. You know, the text is super easy to consume in nice chunks. The white space is really used nicely. I'm already seeing the beautiful images that Ascentech works on in these spaces. I'm learning about the company. It's really a snapshot of the entire company. I can learn about the projects. I learn about the services we provide. I'm learning about the company with some stats, which are further down on the page. And I'm learning about the employees already. Like, I already get a sense of who Ascentech is, who some of the people might work on. And I was actually able to give this little preview to a small group when we were working on something. And actually, Andy Carvalera right there literally just goes, "Why is this so much better than our current one?" So I knew we were on the right track when he said that. When you have a buy-in from a technical staff, I was like, great, check mark.
Nice. Excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And looking forward to seeing the new site go live, as I'm sure you are.
Most definitely.
So Sean, I'm going to jump over to your history page. Tell us something that you love about the new website, and a few reasons why you think it's working well for you. And we can start by looking at your history page, and then we'll jump over to maybe one of your bios.
Yeah, so the history page I mentioned previously was not something we had. It was, we have a long legacy. As you can see, we were founded in 1970. So we just celebrated our 50th. We knew that would be upcoming. We knew it was something we wanted to put us some time and effort into. And it was also a way to really kind of capture, because we were rebranding. We were going from Lamoureux Pagano Associate Architects, which, try to spell that, I challenge you all. You will definitely get it wrong. But we wanted to capture the legacy of Dick Lamoureux and Mike Pagano and really our story. You know, we're based here in Central Mass. We've worked regionally for those 50 years and let people really understand the legacy of work that we have and all the clients we've worked with throughout the years. So this has been really well received. It's gotten a lot of traffic, as you can imagine, when we were celebrating our 50th, which was also great to see. And we really kind of supplemented this and bolstered this through social media campaigns over this past year. We did kind of a 50-year, 50 projects campaign across all our social media, which drove a lot of people back to our website.
Excellent. Great. Now I'm going to jump over to a bio page. And maybe you can talk a little bit about how this has worked for you.
So this has been great. This has been very well received also. So as most people know, I don't know how other people's analytics kind of prove out, but for us, every time we're putting out news stories, any, you know, tags on social media, LinkedIn, you name it, it's driving a lot of traffic into our personnel. And it's great to keep these refreshed. The one thing that's been great is we have in our community section and related articles that we're able to easily on the back end tag key personnel too. So it really gives a person a good sense once they're in our website what this particular person's involved in, their background, their registrations, affiliations, awards. And it's nice in the sense that it's compact. You can take it in quickly. As you can see, it's not all that long, but if you want to drive down further, as Vanessa just showed, you really can and get a strong sense of this person's role in the company and what they really like to do.
Great, great. I just wanted to mention that, you know, the bios, as we said before, were all done professionally, and it makes such a nice difference to have consistently photographed, beautiful features of people. Sean, I'm going to stay with you. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced and how those were resolved with the way the new site was designed and built out. This is an example of one of your case study pages. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there was kind of two things I want to touch on quickly. So as I mentioned, Lamero Pagano Associates, our web address used to be lameropagano.com. With anyone with a French last name, we couldn't get anyone to spell Lamero right. And if you look at the posting for this exercise, Lamero is actually spelled wrong on this marketing posting. But so we went to LPAA. That was our rebrand with the pipe. It also allowed us to actually get a 4-letter web address, which was fantastic that it was available. So that was really like the first big thing that we wanted to get past. Our web addresses, our personnel's email addresses are getting far too long. But the other thing that we really liked was just the open-ended framework that Clockwork helped us provide, that we could really use similar layout pages to bolster the stories we wanted to tell and expand in the future. So I think when we launched, this is a case story about historic preservation and renovations. It allows us to host multimedia, from videos to photos. But it also allowed us to leave out ones that we weren't ready for and easily create that content on our own going forward in the future. So that was something we were very keenly interested in being able to have our own control over what ends up being launched in the future. And they really provided that framework. It allowed us to provide any size, ratio, shape, photography, integration of quotes. We have a lot of quotes from clients as far as their projects go, was another thing that we really wanted to get into there. And the framework just really supported all that, very easy on the back end. And it's been great. I think we're up to 8 or 9 case stories now. So we've expanded on that quite a bit.
I know this was a nice feature also, where for projects where you worked with a client that you've done a lot of work for, you were able to put in this section for more projects for that same client.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, thank you. That was very helpful. Cassandra, I'm going to jump over to you now, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about your website, and I'm going to refresh it so we can see how the homepage starts and tells the story.
Yeah. So I think one of the most important things for us when we did our website update was to really focus on our team, our people. And so our landing page actually features our team and cycles through and flips through, and everybody loves this feature. We have gotten lots of feedback, specifically about our team members' children being super excited to just like sit and watch as the tiles flip, just waiting for their parents or people that they know. So that has been fun. So we're very excited about all of it, but I think landing on our people sends the most important message for us as a company.
Excellent. And I know we scroll down and have a lot more of interesting information also on your homepage. Anything else you wanted to share about that?
Yeah, I think, I think contrasting LPAA's and EP's website is actually really important because at the end of the day, the work that Environmental Partners does is multifaceted. And sometimes we're focused on beautifying main streets and intersections, but also sometimes we're focused on poop. Like we do a lot of wastewater projects and things that are not that glamorous. So we really had to focus on balancing, being proud of that work that we do, right? We help keep communities' environments clean and safe and comfortable. But also we cannot always have the most glorious imagery. So finding that balance for our site was really, really important.
That's great. Yeah, we're showing a picture here of the Great Pond Treatment Plant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's important to show some pictures, but again, the information that we wanted to convey was equally as important. So getting that across in a concise way, but allowing readers to, read more if they're interested to click on, and then showing these related team members, keeping everyone engaged as they're scrolling down the page. Excellent. Great. All righty. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And jumping back. So let's continue with our final round of questions. And I'll start with you this time, Amanda. So Amanda, I know you're very passionate about web usability and navigability. Can you tell us why this is so important and some things we should know about it?
Sure. Ascentech is constantly adding new content to our site, and there's a possibility with that the site can become overwhelming, which in my opinion, our current site has. Users don't know where to go to find the information they need. They can be missing out on related content that they might find interesting. They're just simply not engaging with the site. I'm a huge data and analytics person, and you can simply see that in our data and analytics. They come to a blog and then they leave. They read the blog, which is great, but we want them to kind of move on through the site and learn more about us. We want them to come and stay for a while, and I think most companies would agree with this, but this is not happening when the usability and navigability on the site is so poor. Users come to the site for the information they were looking for, and hopefully they leave with more than they came for. Maybe they learned we provide an additional service they didn't know about. Maybe they learned that we were on an award-winning project, or maybe they found a really cool blog about ambulance siren noise that they found interesting and they dived in a bit deeper. Maybe they contacted, Ben Markham on a project who was on the project. We really want them to engage with the site and then essentially engage with us as a company. The easier the site is to navigate, the longer they're going to stay. So, I mean, it's just like simple as that. So we're really trying to make it super user-friendly and just really simple for everyone to use. And then again, on that mobile site, we really want that to be super user-friendly. We don't want it to look, very chunky. We want it to just change when you go from mobile to tablet to desktop. And I think that's just as important as your desktop usability and navigability. So that's super important, and I would definitely pay attention to that, because when people come to the site, you kind of want to almost suggest where they should go next and anticipate what they're going to look for and provide them with the right content that maybe they didn't even know they needed, and that's super important. Excellent.
All very, very great advice. Thank you. So Sean, I know you are very passionate about client service. Can you tell us why this is important as it relates to the web design and some things that we should know about? Whoops, Sean?
Sorry about that. For us, that was a huge a thing we wanted to integrate, and really a legacy of clients. One thing we really pride ourselves on is our repeat clients. There's some communities we've been working with for decades, and as Vanessa pointed out on that Shrewsbury Library project, really that's one client that's local and near and dear to us, and we really loved the non-dead ends that we have, not only in projects relating to other clients, relating to similar building types if we haven't had legacies with that client, but even driving down to our personnel, related news articles about them, affiliations, projects they were on. Whatever your connection is to us, whether it's personal or a project, we want you to know more. We want you to know that, this isn't our first time. This isn't going to be our last time. And we're not going anywhere. We're here to serve our community, and we're so happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. And Cassandra, I'll wrap up with you. I know that you are very passionate about inclusivity. Can you tell us why this is important as it relates to your website and some of the things that you thought about?
Yeah, so when I think of inclusion, I think of a concept of open community and reflection. And as it relates to websites in general, but I'll specifically talk about Environmental Partners' website, I think of team, I think of accessibility, ADA awareness, and then I also think of diversity and representation. And I think all of those are so important to be mindful of consistently throughout the process, and after, and certainly before as well. As a woman of color in the AEC industry, that representation is not always there. So trying to, you know, be mindful of that and making sure that all companies, including the one that I am integrated with and work for, are focused on authenticity and self-awareness as it relates to inclusion, I think is really, really important.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. So we have about 15 minutes left and we have lots of questions to get to. So I'm going to just start by reading down the chat questions. So if anybody else has some questions for the panelists today or for me, feel free to enter them into chat and we'll try to get to everyone. And if we can't, I'm happy to stick around longer. Some of our panelists may be as well. And certainly if you have to take off, feel free to shoot us an email. I'm happy to get back to anyone with further questions. So our first question was from Bill Fleming. And he's wondering if Cassandra had multiple bids for the project because you didn't use an RFP.
Yeah, that's a great question, Bill. So, so full transparency, I was actually not with the company when we initially reached out to anybody about our rebrand. In fact, there was quite a lull between when that initial contact happened and when we actually got started because they were in the process of looking for somebody and then hiring me. Ultimately, our leaders, so specifically our director of marketing and our CEO, they do everything very intentionally and strategically. They had spent a lot of time actually looking at competitors' websites and identifying who did those sites and really solely went to Clockwork and said, hey, we like what you're doing and we think we need you.
Excellent, thank you. So here's a question to everyone from Kate. Kate would like to learn more about how firms created the budget for the website.
So for us, I think it was kind of eye-opening. We really didn't know what we were getting into. As we mentioned, we didn't have a budget set in our RFP. When I say the margin of or the delta between the top tier, I don't even know if I want to call them top tier, but just the highest price and the lowest price was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, to say the least. So short of probably reaching out to firms ahead of time, it was difficult for us to really get a strong sense. I mean, different firms offer different services in-house and out-house, and whether it's, consultant based or, they have a legacy of people they work with, really made the biggest difference in the budgets. Some of them that worked with vastly different designers and they were more website based, those were some of the higher price. So that's probably the only kind of rule of thumb I can give, is that when we saw that clearly they didn't have a particular designer on staff or one that they work with, and they hire from outside, their price was much higher than others.
Great. Any other thoughts on that one?
I think I'd like to share that we were in an interesting situation where essentially our website was so outdated that we knew that it was causing significant problems with recruiting, more so with recruiting than clients. And so at the end of the day, it was a situation where our top leadership said, whatever it takes, whatever we need to do within reason, that's what we need to do. And I think anybody starting this process, I would not hesitate to reach out to companies. If you have a specific budget that you can manage and handle, see what can be done within that. See where your company is right now and what you might be able to do within that cost and time frame, because updates are very, very important. And sometimes you don't necessarily need a complete overhaul. Sometimes you just need to maintain or make smaller updates.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in on that. We always tell our clients that, well, I use the analogy that building a website is like building a house. I mean, you can have a mobile home or you can have a mansion. So if you determine what your budget is, a good reputable agency will help guide you through that process and say, okay, for this budget, here's how you can best get an effective website that's going to meet your marketing goals. And working with the agency to determine what those goals really are can also be helpful too. We can help guide you in terms of where to allocate those dollars. You know, should you be putting them into new photography, or is that something that you can just use existing imagery for? You know, do you need help writing the content and paying for that outside writing service? Or do you have people on staff that can handle that writing component that's very costly? So that can all be figured out based on that marketing budget that you have for the website, for sure. So Chris wants to know, how involved are technical subject matter experts in the site content development, and how do you utilize your SMEs?
I'll start with this one. Our consultants are super involved in our content. They really spearhead the blogs they want to write. I manage the entire blog and sometimes suggest certain things that maybe they should write about. And then they really take it upon themselves. You can see that we have a wide range of content out there. Regarding project summaries, marketing will take a project summary, look through the proposal, look through all the materials. We'll write a draft and then send it to the consultants. I find that people are more likely to edit things than to just create it themselves. So that's really, it's much easier for someone to give comments about, you know, your work and how it's not great, for them to just do it yourselves. So that's how we deal with that. I would love to see, you know, we have a lot of different vertical market leaders, and leaders think that, you know, what their thing is great, and what something I'm really looking forward to is when we have some new leadership, is that someone could be guiding these vertical market leaders to be like, okay, great, like we know you love performing arts, but actually like our higher ed stuff is what we're going to focus on, and really having someone to direct them, and then essentially not to always, you know, have their needs and wants all the time.
Excellent. Great. So Marianne had a question. She'd like to know if any of the panelists considered or integrated video content, and they're exploring that for their site, and she's curious if there is advice around supporting that type of video content.
I think I'll start with this one. So when Clockwork came to us with initial concepts, I believe 2 of them actually included video content. And in general, it was very alluring for us. And I think there's something very powerful about video content. Ultimately, what we decided was that we didn't want to go that route, at least not yet, because we knew that we already had pretty significant content that we had to make sure we were updating consistently. And our concern with video specifically is that it can get outdated, or if you're not staying on top of it or refreshing it, it can just feel stale. But it's also a very intriguing medium.
Excellent. Anybody
For
else?
us, if I could just add quickly, we really wanted to, getting into content creation. Part of the reason why we didn't in some respects was the time of the year. If you didn't already have the video, you know, if it's the dead of winter and this is a particular project and it's not all interiors, it becomes quite difficult to achieve. So it's really getting that content creation up front and finding the right people to get it done. I mean, budget increases significantly when you start including video. We have since looked at people to provide video for us, and it's a much greater capital commitment than photography. So that would be the only other thing I'd add.
Yeah. And keep in mind that if the site is designed to allow for video, which most sites are today, it can be something that you kind of consider doing selectively. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It doesn't mean that every single project has to have a video, or, you know, every single service page has to have a video. You can add it selectively.
Also, can I add, video can be expensive. If you don't have somebody in-house that does it, it can cost a lot of money. So that also needs to be taken into consideration.
Yeah. You don't want to put up homespun looking video.
Right.
Good question though. Great. So Cassandra, question for you. A little bit more information on asset management software. You had mentioned that.
Yeah. So I won't mention any specific brands, not endorsing, but in general, asset management software allows for companies, big and small, to really create organizational systems. I'll talk specifically for photos. So what's beautiful about them is that you can actually upload your photos. You can add tags so that down the road, 2 weeks from now, if you need to find photos on community engagement, maybe that's a tag you already have. And then the 317 photos that you have in your little asset management program will pop up and you know immediately which one you want to use versus having to go through folder systems. Or our director of marketing is blessed with this ability to recall content from years and years past. Like I'll say, hey, when was the last time we did an RFP for blank? And she'll say, oh, that was probably around like March of 2005. And I'm like, what? And she knows who it was, what the client was, what we integrated. And I'm like, how? You don't need that superhero power. You can just go to the platform and find what you need.
Excellent. So I guess some Google searching will return quite a number of asset management applications.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Paula was interested in knowing a little bit more about new hire photography. If you're adding bios for everyone, like many of you are, how do you handle getting their photos taken, their portraits taken?
So I'll start. So we have our photographer, we have an on-call contract essentially with, and when we first began the process of photography, because we did not have photographs of all of our team members, we were having him come in twice a year. So every 6 months, I think we were doing like March and September. Since we have been expanding rapidly, obviously 2020 is an exception. We have actually consistently had him in about every quarter actually. So we keep track of all the new hires that have come on and we will have them photographed. But then also because we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary since we first did our initial photo shoots with everybody, we actually have a system that we are just starting now where we are intentionally updating and having him come back in for older photography to keep those updated for those who want or need it.
Excellent. I'll just also add that even with COVID social distancing limitations, I have been doing quite a number of photo shoots with my clients of late. We have protocols in place. The photographers know how to deal with it. We even have had a makeup artist recently who has very well-defined COVID protocols. So it is quite possible to do photography now. People know how to handle it and it's quite safe. Good. So Kate would like to know, how are people deciding whether or not to begin web design projects when financial forecasts are uncertain? It's a hard time to commit to resources, but also time one wants to emerge with a strong online presence. So how are firms, like Amanda, you are going through the process right now. What was the thought behind jumping right in 2020?
Yeah, this was definitely a topic we discussed for a while, and I think something that really wasn't, the reason we went for it is just kind of like I was saying before. I mean, our site is at least 5 to 6 years old. I wasn't here when they first did it. You can just see that the amount of effort we're putting in and the time we're putting in to update content, to really make ourselves thought leaders, that wasn't being that effort wasn't reaping the benefits because our analytics and SEO and everything was showing that people were bouncing from the page. They weren't spending a lot of time on our website. And especially when everything is so digital right now, that we really, really wanted people to be engaging with us online if they weren't engaging with us in person.
Great. Yeah, and we have found also that just hearing from clients and prospects that because of lack of human interaction, you know, we haven't been able to go to events. We haven't been able to do personal business networking. We haven't been able to do that face-to-face client interaction. The websites have become so much more crucial in terms of getting that new business in the door and also continuing with recruiting when needed. I mean, companies still need to have staff to do the work, and they're not going to want to have problems getting work done. So it's absolutely important that your website is competitive. So definitely, it's a huge thing. Okay. Bill would like to know, in what ways did you use analytics from previous sites to determine the new site? What analytics do you monitor now? And how do you use the analytics and why? Anyone want to jump in on that?
So I am like an analytics and data nerd. I love them. I think you can't do marketing without them. And especially your website. I think it's just it's so easy. I mean, why aren't you looking at them? That's a whole other topic. But for us, we really focused on, again, these bounce rates and just the time people were spending and whether or not they were really navigating throughout our site. Again, our blog is huge. People really enjoy our blog. It's always on the top pages of our like monthly report. But people just weren't going further, and we wanted to know why. Like, why weren't they? They're spending the time to read the blog, and that was it. Like, was anything not interesting to them? Why weren't they moving on throughout the site? So that was super important. We also really focus on keywords, and I'm happy to say that we rank very high in the keywords for like some of the #1 terms. Like if you're looking for like, why does a tree make noise when it falls in a forest? Like our blog's coming up. Like we're very high in there. And that's a lengthy blog article. I don't know if the verdict's out yet. So we really focus on that as well. I mean, we haven't done our news site, so we don't have any, we're focusing on then. I would imagine we're going to focus on all of the ones that we are currently focusing on, not only because I think it really can drive the content you're going to be putting up and what changes you're going to be making, but also just because I like it.
Great. So I think we're pretty much down at the end of our questions. If anybody has any remaining questions that they'd like to ask, I don't know if you want to open up the mics at this point or if we should let you guys wrap up.
Kate, what do you think?
Well, it's after 9:30. Belinda Watts did throw a question into the chat. So maybe we should say thank you to everybody for coming. And if y'all want to stay on the line for just a couple more minutes and answer Belinda's question, I'm really curious. She asked what were the names of some of the firms you looked at whose websites or graphic design you admired. It's a pretty open-ended one.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, really, I know. That's a long list. Maybe like best in class, I don't know.
Right. A majority of our clients are architects, and architects have beautiful websites because they live in this very visual
Not all of them do. Sorry.
I'm just giving the compliments, okay? But couple that stick out in my mind, which I just think, which is Gensler, is Sasaki, Marguerite's Peruzzi has a really great one, and kind of like melds kind of in this like, this local, but also it isn't like super large, so that's a good one as well. But yeah, Gensler's and Sasaki's, I mean, I'll just like click through the images. I mean, some of them are just really beautiful. But those are just a couple that come to my mind. There are lots more out there, and if I didn't mention your firm, I apologize.
I noticed also a question about what to do if you're a very small firm, and it's tricky. I'd be happy to speak one-on-one, but there are ways of building sites economically. A lot of small companies have very lovely sites, and I would suggest looking at some of the sort of templated solutions like Squarespace. You can create your own site almost, or have an agency who knows how to use Squarespace create a very lovely site. It won't be as robust, but it will be quite effective, and it will work well on phones and tablets as well as desktop.
Well, this has been wonderful. I think we're ready to wrap up. No?
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. And look for our next session in March. I believe it's the 24th. We'll send out information about that soon. We're looking forward to that too.
Well, thank you all so much. Thanks again to my panelists. You were wonderful. And thanks to the BSA for inviting us. So it was really fun to do.
Great.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.